Hey, I'm Brad, and this is the Be Rad podcast. Thanks for being here. I've created this so that we can experience the awe, wonder, and curiosity of being human. For many years, I carried the sense that something was wrong with me. No matter how hard I tried, I just couldn't fit all the pieces together. My faith tradition promised acceptance from the divine, but I often felt this separation. He's over there, and I'm over here. So I decided to leave the path and the tradition. But what if leaving the path actually is the tradition? What if there's more going on here than what I was led to believe? Now, I know that separation is just an illusion. There's nothing wrong with me, and there's nothing wrong with you. We've simply forgotten who it is that we are. It's time for us to wake up to this divine reality, having eyes to see what has been true the whole time. It's from this heart space that I meet you here. I invite you to step off the familiar path, where together we can be radical in our becoming. Welcome. Have you ever stopped to think how crazy it is in our present day society that on the social media platforms that we all are on, to varying degrees, this can really cover a wide spectrum of people. We're looking to follow people. We're finding a tribe of people that we can associate with. We want to find someone who understands a situation that maybe we feel stuck in, or that we can feel sympathy or empathy from another person, or give empathy and sympathy to another person. So we're looking to follow, to be influenced, to be guided in some ways. And then that shoe also gets turned around and we can be on the other foot, and we are wanting to be followed. We want people to subscribe to our channel, to our message, to our voice, and to things that we are talking about. So we go round and round this circle of following other people for good intent or ill intent, however we define that, and then we also take pleasure and gratitude and fulfillment in us, people following us, people giving us their vote of confidence. So we're following other people, and other people are following us. And I've been thinking about this for quite some time, but I recently had an experience that I felt gave me some good content to dive into this idea of following. And originally I thought, don't follow me. I thought, I'm going to title this "Don't Follow Me," or maybe post something. And yeah, the purpose for this message on Facebook or Instagram is don't sign up for my podcast. Don't listen to me. Don't. And maybe that's kind of an extreme perspective, and I don't think that's what I'm feeling. But I want to talk about this idea of just following other people and maybe what that looks like. So here's the experience that I had, and to give you a little bit of backdrop, I'm someone who loves to learn. You might have picked that up on just listening to these podcasts if you follow me or if you know me in person. But I love input. I love to synthesize not just data, because I'm not a science geek kind of guy, but I love to dive deeply into things that are of interest to me. And so if I have discovered an author, or if I've taken a program or something, I will love to gather and to learn and to bring that into myself, because I love that experience. It really is fantastic. What happens though for me, and I know maybe not everyone can relate to this because we all function differently, but I remember taking my assessment on the Strength Finders skill set, or Strength Finders assessment. And if you know what that is, you get like a top 5 strengths that are yours, and there's more to it, but basically let's just leave it at that. So the top 5 strengths for me were input, learner, intellection, discipline, and responsibility. So those 5 are where I lead the best. Those are my strong suits. I function the best in those, in that capacity. So learning is up there for me, and I'm almost I lean too heavily on learning, to the point where I think that someone somewhere else has something that if I just continue to gather and collect and fill my bookcase with books, and I fill my head with knowledge and keep seeking the next experience or whatever, that somehow I will gather what I'm looking for, that I'll fill the void that I don't seem to have within myself. So I have that difficulty. So my wife suggested to me, "Hey Brad, you should go away for a couple of days. And one of the prerequisites in going is that you can't learn anything while you're there. You can't take any books. You can't listen to any podcasts. You can't do any learning, gathering content. Go to a place where you can be in solitude. You can be in silence, where you essentially can be with yourself." And I thought, that's great. I'm going to do that. So I contacted a friend of mine, Corey. He has a farmhouse a couple hours north of where we live. And I was able to spend 3 or 4 days in that kind of environment. And it was very daunting, and as I was driving up there, because I wasn't sure how I was going to respond to such remoteness. And again, I wasn't in the middle of nowhere. Like, there's towns close by, and I could hear one car drive down the dirt road because it was kind of out in the country. So I wasn't alone. But it gave me this sense for cutting myself off from a lot of the things that I get caught up in every day of my life. And I realized within the first couple of hours of being there, just how fast-paced my life actually is. And I don't live in a big city that I'm in traffic all day. If you were to look at my life, you wouldn't necessarily think that I'm out of control, fast-paced. But for me, I was able to realize how frenetic, how frantic sometimes my life is. And when I only knew that by contrast, by stepping into an environment where it was still. So when I first arrived at the farmhouse, I wrote down a list of questions that came to me. So a lot of this episode, I'm going to read just chunks of my journal that I took with me. That was one thing I allowed myself. I had my blank journal, and I've been journaling for many years. I think maybe in my late teens, all throughout my 20s and 30s, and then probably in the last 5 years, I've really dove back into this art form of writing out what's going on inside of me. And it's a really great exercise, so I encourage you to do that if you don't already. So here are some questions that I wrote out. What does Brad know? What does he think? How does he feel about this? What sort of wisdom lives inside of his heart? Where is the source of his love? Brad, who are you? Where are you? And how do I find you? So that's how I started off the week. And I wanted to have an open posture. I didn't want to come to some quick, glib answer to any of these questions, because that's easy to do. We are programmed to come up with the answer. We are conditioned to learn the correct answer, and then whenever the question comes up, we search our database and we give the answer because we are graded on it, our performance rests on it, and if we want results and we want approval, if we just give the answer that is socially acceptable and is the right one based on Wikipedia, then we're on the right path. But part of that beginner's mind, if you look into what beginner's mind is to resist the urge to think that there's only one way of doing it. And when you broaden the scope and you're like, with this question, there may be more than one answer. And the truth is there's probably way more than one answer or solution or possibility that could be given for this question that you're asking. So I started off with the week with questions, and I didn't necessarily think it was my job to answer these questions. My agenda wasn't to tackle 2 or 3 questions a day, and that wasn't really I wasn't thinking like that. I was just curious. I wanted to sit with myself long enough without outside influences to find out what does Brad know? What do you think? If there is wisdom inside of you, what does that feel like? Where is that located in your body? And if you were to draw that up to the surface, and if it was to come out of you through your pen onto the page in the form of ink that lives on a real piece of paper, what would that look? If I read that, what would I read? As a musician, I love to create through music. So if I were to share my wisdom with you through music, what would it sound like? If you were to do that, if you were to share with me your innate wisdom, the things that you know, the things that you think, how would I interact with that? How would you express that to me, to other people? And not just come to the quick conclusion that you've always come to, or the one that you think other people expect from you. But if you were to give from an honest place, what would that look like? I also came to the conclusion that same day after I wrote these questions out was, what is my job here this week? Because essentially, I wasn't completely off the grid, to be honest. I still did a little bit of work on my computer. I had to do some stuff with our business, and I was still in contact with my wife and a few other people. So I wasn't. I don't want to romanticize this idea that I was completely internet free. It wasn't. I'm sorry. Maybe another time in the future I was. But I realized that my job was to show up. My work. I'm just reading from my journal here. My work was to be present. My effort was to be engaged in relationship. And that relationship was with myself. It wasn't with other people, but it was be engaged in the relationship that's going on with yourself. So my job was to be present. It wasn't to try to juggle all the balls of my life in the air and make sure that none of them dropped. My job wasn't to please other people. My job wasn't to get anything done. My job was just to be present. Do you know how hard that is? If you've ever tried to be present, more so than maybe what you've been in the past, that's a very challenging proposition. We just find it difficult to stay grounded in this moment that doesn't somehow talk about the future, right? Talk about what we're planning to do and what goals we have ahead of us. We get very excited about talking about the future, right? Or on the flip side, we reminisce the past, and that has a certain fervor to it, and we feel good about talking about something that has happened in the past. But to actually talk about the present is not something that we're really well acquainted with. We don't know how to function in that. Okay, so after that part of my journal, I want to read another little chunk here. So I surrender my need to be a striving student. Remember I said earlier, I'm a learner. Top 5 of my strength finders, I love to learn. So I'm going to surrender this need that I have to be a striving student, because it's exhausting to labor for the wisdom that others have unearthed within themselves. Brad, I want to discover the treasures inside my own sandbox. I want to feel the ground that my feet are standing on. I want to feel that. I want to know what I'm connected to. I don't always want to feel that from another person. And there's a place for that, and maybe I'm going to talk about that later. But in this moment, in this space, the reason why I'm here at this farmhouse is I want to surrender my striving, and I want to ground myself here in this moment. I'm going to flip the page. I'm going to continue on with my journal entry here. So, how wide can I swing the doors to let the wind blow through my house? Can I crack open the gate a little further, creating a bit more space for spirit to flow? I want to be a wide open vessel, not a narrow passageway, but an expansive throughway. That was my posture. That was my prayer. That was my request for myself and the divine as we sat in the stillness of this farmhouse and in the stillness of this property that did not have a lot of movement, that did not have a lot of the trappings that I find in my own house. And then I want to read to you this last part of this page. I want to open the divine nuggets within my own DNA. I want to unlock the brilliance in my bones, the beauty in my blood, the joy in my joints. I want to uncover my soul that's hidden underneath my skin. I had an amazing experience at this farmhouse. I had lots of time to reflect. I meditated more than usual. I did listen to some guided meditations that I had. I had some music. I went for long walks. I rested in the afternoon. I slept if I wanted to. I went swimming naked, skinny dipping in the pond in the back. I went for walks in the forest. I played with a cat. I made food. I just spent time with myself. And at the end of this time at the farmhouse, I had 3 questions that I wrote for myself. So in the beginning, I had a list of questions that I had read just a couple minutes ago. You know, what do you know, Brad? What do you think? How do you feel about this? What sort of wisdom is inside of you? Who are you? You know, what are you processing here? How would you articulate this? And as I left the farmhouse, I wanted to ask 3 more questions. And this time, I actually did address the questions. I didn't leave them just blanket, but I actually looked at them. So here are the questions. Number 1, what did I bring here? Number 2, what did I leave here? And number 3, what am I taking away? So the first one, what did I bring here? Very simple. I brought myself. That's it. Sure, I brought a bag of clothes. I bought some food to bring with me because I didn't want to starve. I did bring my computer. I did bring my phone. I did bring in my journal. But essentially, the intention, and for the most part, I really captured this. I brought myself. I brought me. I didn't bring the world with me. I didn't bring all of the voices that I wanted to listen to while I was there, but I brought myself because I wanted to experience something in the silence. I wanted to enter into this sacred space of solitude. And I do remember driving up there feeling unnerved. I wasn't sure how I was going to handle that type of solitude willingly. I knew that was coming ahead of me. It wasn't surprised upon me. It didn't just happen without me knowing about it, but I intentionally knew that I was walking into silence, and I chose silence. And I wanted to be unplugged, and I wasn't sure how I was going to handle that. So what I brought was a bit of uncertainty, a little bit of fear around that. And one of the fears that actually came up for me while I was there was this question of, I'm 41 years old and I'm still afraid of the dark. I really wrestled with that in this old farmhouse, creaky noises at night. I was afraid. I don't know what I was afraid of. I wrote a long journal entry about it, and I'll talk about that maybe another point. But why am I still afraid at 41 of the dark? It boggles my mind. I'm not afraid of the dark here at home, but all of a sudden when things get really quiet, it feels very eerie. It feels very ominous all of a sudden, as if the darkness is a bad thing. I believe that it's a bad thing. So I'll leave that as a cliffhanger for maybe another time. So I brought all that. I brought this kind of fear of, I wasn't sure what to expect. And I brought myself. I brought all of me. I brought the effort that I was going to bring into the space of, I'm going to be present. My effort here is to show up. My job is to be engaged in whatever the moment feels like, whatever happens in that moment. I'm going to be present here. Question number 2, what am I leaving here? What am I going to leave in this space? The first thing I wrote down was, I'm leaving here the romantic notion that life alone is complete bliss. It's not. Being by yourself in solitude can be very frightening. It can be peaceful. Yes. It can be releasing of stress. Absolutely. But it can well up some tension that was lying dormant. Things that you thought you were over, but you're not. And that's okay. There's no shame. There's no reason to flog yourself for this. It's just a flag that is coming up of, oh, okay, cool. He's silent now. She's silent now. Like we can look at this. And solitude and silence has that capacity. There was one little book I saw there was a shack in the back of the property, and it was called The Wonders of Solitude. I believe that was the title of it. And it was a collection of different quotes from different people. And I admit I did pick up a book. I read a little bit. Couldn't resist. And all these individuals are talking about solitude and what that looks like for them. And I concur. This isn't the only time that I've had solitude, and I'm sure you've had your moments of solitude as well, where you start to feel a greater depth in you that isn't always felt in the mad rush of our lives. And when we take moments, we create moments, we are intentional about having solitude, then we can feel those things, because it is rewarding to dial down the frenetic pace, the frantic pace of our life, and to feel deeply, to think wisely, to tap into resources inside of us that would have been glossed over because we missed it. We were driving too fast on the highway. We weren't able to see what was available because we're looking to the signs of other people. We're looking to follow someone else's ideas. The other thing that I left behind in reading my journal here was my earnest attempts to control my life. I have this resolve. I have a sense of discipline within myself that wants to improve. It wants to grow. It wants to make things better. And some days I feel it more than others. Sometimes I'm lazy. Sometimes I'm not too eager to do much of anything, and that's okay. And maybe you feel those times too. But I generally speaking want to make the best of things, or I want to control. I want to manage what is happening around me. And I do this both as a student and as someone who's wanting to master something, getting better at a skill set. I just recently bought some music software that I'm wanting to learn to get better at. I've been a piano player for many years, and now I'm wanting to jump more into music production and to create soundtrack music that is evocative and that has different layers and parts, but that requires me to learn a skill, and I want to get better at that. But here's the thing, is that in all of my strivings and my desires and my attempts, what I want to leave and what I left in this experience is that I want to leave this striving behind. Because what that does is it pulls me away from the present moment. And the truth is that the present moment, it's a very, if I can give like a metaphor, it's like a narrow edge of, I don't know, I'm just thinking like a book here, for example. So you have a book, right? And the binding of the book is the most narrow part of that book, but the surface of the book is it's large, right? It's a large surface area. You open all the pages. There's lots of places your eyes can go, whether it's a blank journal or a written journal or another book. It can go anywhere, or not anywhere, but you know what I mean? Like there's lots of spots to go to, but that the binding of the book, or where it's all bound together, it's a narrow edge there. And that to me represents in many ways the present moment. It's a very small, narrow, sweet spot that exists in the bigger scope and the bigger picture of things, but it's easily missed. You can easily slip off of it and get back into what's happening. And in some ways we need to get into what is happening. We need to look at the pages and engage with the people in our lives and make decisions and make course corrections in our budget and all of those things. That can be what the pages represent. But that sweet spot is where we are hoping, I think, to come back to again and again, so that we don't feel this pressure of striving all the time. And that starts to weigh down on us. It certainly weighs down on me, thinking that it's up to me to make all this happen. And I have to gather and collect, and I got to have the right answers, and I need to have my shit together, right? That is somehow sort of part of the engine that I feel is moving me forward. But in the present moment, there's like a shift that can take place, and that presence relieves that pressure, and we don't have to do it all on our own. We can leave that behind and still be in the book. We don't have to throw the book away and say, this book doesn't work anymore. Like, no, we can still live inside of our own book and live in the pages. But we can also find that sweet spot daily, not just on a weekend, or not just on a vacation, or not just on some retreat that you might go on, but it can be a daily practice of like, where is that sweet spot inside of me where the striving is released and I can breathe effortlessly, and things are taken care of. I'm safe. I'm secure. And then from that space, then we can learn to feel that more clearly and trust ourselves. And then when we can re-engage and integrate that version of ourselves, that true version of ourselves, back into the pace of our life. And maybe we need to change elements of our life so it's not so fast, and then we can make changes that facilitate this present moment. Okay, now the last question I asked myself was, what am I taking away? So the first question is, what did I bring? What am I leaving? The second one, and the third one is, what am I taking away from this experience? And here's what I wrote down in my journal. All right. I take with me an unbridled enthusiasm for life, the beautiful gift of curiosity that I trust is guiding me. I celebrate all the parts that make me human. I love who I am, and I love who I am becoming. That's not something I say very often to myself. If I was honest with you, whoever you are listening, and if I'm honest in this space, even in this present moment as I'm recording this, how often, Brad, do you celebrate all the parts that make you human? Do you love, are you in love with who you are right now? And am I in love with the person that I'm becoming? it seems to me that much of our systems in life that look religious and religious systems, economic structures, organizations, that if we are signed up for an organization, we are abiding by their rules and their programs, their dogma. In education, certainly educational systems, and whatever other ones that you can think of, I think that this message doesn't come through very clearly. I often think the opposite is being communicated, where we are not celebrated so much as we are chastised, perhaps, for not being better than what we ought to be. And it happens subtly sometimes. It's not overt. Oftentimes it is overt. It can be very upfront. Like, if you want to join this team, if you want to join this church, if you want to be a part of our group, here's our value system. Here's what we agree with. Here's what we don't disagree with or don't agree with. And if you want to represent us, then we ask that you wear this uniform. We ask that you say these things. We ask that you look like us. And I think that certainly applies to the social media world, right? Where we're following other people, and we want to be like them, and we like what they're doing, and we're more in love with the people that we're following than we are in love with following ourselves. We love how they said it. We love the way that they look. We love the confidence in which they exude. We love the work that they're doing. We love the impact that they're having. We love. And then we follow them. We subscribe to their channel, to their message, to their voice. So here's the paradox that I find in all of this, is that we are influenced by other people. That is the truth. I am influenced by the environment that I'm in. And when this really first started to dawn on me, I started to realize the situations that I did not want to influence me anymore. Because if that was true, and if the saying goes, you are the average of the 5 people that you hang out with the most. Okay, so, and those 5 people are not necessarily the people in the room. It could be people that you constantly listen to, you constantly watch, you hear them in your head every day, you are being affected by them. You become like them. That's not arbitrary. That's not of your volition. That's just the natural order of things. We become and like the things that we hang out with. So if that's true, then what things are influencing me that I don't want to influence me anymore? So I remember it wasn't maybe a one day moment, but I just stopped listening to the radio. I just stopped listening to the news. I just tuned out as many advertisements as possible because of how they make me feel. And I feel inferior. I feel like I'm lacking. That's the job of a good advertiser, is to make me feel as if I am in lack because I don't have that product. I don't have that service. And they've done their job if they've convinced me that I ought to buy what they're selling. And even if what they're selling is great, and even if one day I buy it, right? I buy those pair of shoes, I buy that exercise equipment, I buy that delicious meal. It's all good. It doesn't mean it's bad. It doesn't mean it's bad. But how many people are influencing me? And especially the areas where I don't want to be influenced by that. So I tuned out a lot of those voices, and I became way more intentional about who I wanted to listen to. And I started to listen to other things while I drove in the car. And I think that's why podcasts are great. You can choose who you listen to. If you don't like me, that's fine. Go listen to someone else, or listen to no one. That could be another option. But we don't have to chew the food. We're not forced to eat the food that's given to us. We can come to the table with a lot more choice now than perhaps we did years ago. But what are we choosing to eat? Who are we choosing to influence us? Because it is affecting us. It's coming into our system. It's affecting us at a cellular level. It's affecting us in our thinking. It's reprogramming us. It's reaffirming some of the narratives that we have of our victimhood. It is making us feel inferior, that we are in lack. It is making us feeling superior because we are better than. Who knows, right? Like, what are all the ways that we are being influenced? But if we become aware of this pattern and we become conscious of it, then we can make good choices, and we start to think about who we do want to influence us. So on that note, this is where I'm going to land this episode, is that let yourself be one of the influences in your life that affect you. Out of all the people that you are influenced by, of all the people that you follow on Facebook, that you like their Instagram posts, that you subscribe to their email lists, and anything that happens offline as well, consider yourself to be one of the people that you want to follow. Not reluctantly because, well, I'm stuck in this skin. I don't want to be this person. I really want to be someone else. But going back to this, like, I celebrate all the parts of me. I love this person that I am. And sure, there's things that I do I'm not proud of. I know that I say things that are hurtful. I'm not being ignorant of those things or dismissing the fact that there aren't habits that I would like to change. Fine, yes. But that's part of acceptance. That's part of loving who you are. Is I accept all of those faults that are damaging. And I love who I'm becoming. I love this person. I love you so much that I'm willing to follow you. I'm willing to listen to you. I'm willing to sign up for your program. I want to like your posts. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to listen to what you are talking about. That idea of following yourself, to me, is kind of a new concept, because I'm so used to just following other people. And if you're like myself, maybe you're not as an avid learner as me. Maybe you like to learn, but maybe not as much, or you learn in different ways. Right? The spectrum is diverse in how we learn. But if you find that you feel like someone else has it and you don't, I want to tell you that someone else does have it. Yes, that's a fact. But the truth is that you've got it too. You've got something that is magnificent. You've got something that's worth more than a price tag. You've got a voice that wants to come out. You've got a heart that knows things. You've got an internal, intuitive sense that's valuable, that's worthy to receive from the divine. So of all the people that you're following, yourself should be included in that group. Know that you can follow yourself. Yourself wants to take yourself somewhere amazing. So this is an awkward moment, but if if what you heard was helpful to you, if you honestly think that this could be helpful for someone else, I do encourage you to pass it along as a voice that could be helpful, instrumental to another person. I would appreciate that, and maybe they would appreciate that too. So feel free to pass this along to another person. All of the music today was again brought to you by me. This time it wasn't my upright piano, but it was actually my digital piano with my music software. Thanks again for being here, everyone. I appreciate your time. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.